How's it going? This is your Rad Nerd Dad, and we are here with another Project Ascension video. What I'd like to talk to you about today is the Reaper class. Now, this is going to go over basically all of the talents and skills and spells that you get up until level 40, which is the new level cap. So we're going to just kind of go over all of the things that we see now, kind of show you how some of the skills work, and then give you my opinion so far on the Reaper class itself. And so without further ado, we're going to go down the trees here. So we have the Domination Tree, we have the Soul Tree, and then we also have the Reaping Tree. Now these trees also are associated with your talent spec, this is going to be kind of like the new specialization area for your particular character, all the way up until you reach 60. So these are things that you're going to be able to fill out. And so you can notice here that they're associated with a specific cost, and you have a certain number of ability essences that you can spend. The ability essences you start getting after level 30, all the way up until level 60, essentially allowing you to pick through these three trees here. Now, I went with the Reaping Tree, mostly because that seemed like it was kind of Death Knight-ish, and it also gave me a very cool ability, which I'll show you here in just a second, which is Scythe Rush, and it's basically a charge that gives you 150% weapon damage, as well as healing up to 8% of your health. And then after you cannot use it on the same target. Each consecutive use of the ability increases the subsequent damage by 30%. And so this is a cool little spell to have. And then I took Harvest Time, which increases the effectiveness of my healing spells. And then Desolate, it strikes your target with 180% weapon damage if you're under the effect of masochistic rage. This incurs no cooldown. So that's kind of where I'm at right here. If you want, I can give you a full breakdown of these skills. But if you are the Reaper class, you'll actually be able to see these even without being able to select them. You'll still be able to see them. Now, as far as the skills go, so these, besides the three that you just saw, you get these skills here throughout the leveling of your character. The first one is Ghost Claw, and it's basically your slowing effect. So it's a ranged slow. It gets a 20-yard range, adds a chill effect to their movement speed, which is kind of nice because you have the one gap closer with the with your charge ability that you can talent in, and then this is your only slow, and you get one stun. So Soul Shock, I believe, is so it's basically like the Ret Pally's Repentance. So there's a cast time on it, and there's a really short cooldown, but anything that is done as far as damage wise will end the effect. The other one, you have Jailers of Souls, which is basically your tank ability. It increases all your threat generation and physical damage effects. So it's basically going to increase your parry rating, which you don't have access to shields on this character on a Reaper, but you can dual wield or use a two-handed weapon. So when you're using a two-handed weapon, or if you're dual wielding, you're going to get your parrying rating increased by your agility, and all of your parries will generate a reaped soul, which is your like energy bar kind of thing. The next one is Underwalk. Underwalk requires one-hand weapons. And so what Underwalk does is that you leave the physical form, allowing you to sneak around. And which is really cool because, like, if you ever want to see, it also kind of blinks you to your target. It's a very slow walk, but you also get this like shift ability. It's called Shift. And it's basically like a stealth blink. And it has a pretty short cooldown. Doesn't really require anything to do. You just go over there. And unlike the stealth ability in Project Ascension, this one doesn't have a timer on it. So as long as you stay in stealth and don't attack, you're fine. We also have Withering Touch. You touch a ghostly finger onto the target, reducing all damage that they deal by 90% for 33 seconds. So this is a great one to use when you are tanking and you know that there's going to be some sort of big spell effect or damage effect that's going to happen that will you can use it to reduce. Or if you're doing like a large pull, you know that you want to reduce as much damage as you possibly can. So that'll give you the ability to do that by 90% for 3 seconds. The other one is Writhe. This is the last one that you get in the Domination Tree. And it's use your blood magic to inflict immense pain on an enemy target, taunting them to attack you and reducing their attack speed by 3 seconds. So this is another damage reducer because if you're lowering the attack speed on the melees, you're not going to get a hit as much. So it's just a nice little ability that you can use on cooldown when you're tanking. And then we're going to go to the soul tree here. Remember, Desolate was one from our soul talent tree. So that's not one that you get while leveling. You have to actually talent into that. Then you also have Dirge. Dirge is requires one-handed weapons to use. So when you're dealing the target, you do 220% weapon damage and it generates 2 soul fragments. Murder is kind of like your pull mechanic. So it's a 40-yard range. You send a murder of soul crows that deal shadow damage and regenerate 10% of your mana. This ability scales with spell power and your attack power to a lesser extent. Then you also have Possess. You possess a target. This does have a very short casting time, but it is a casting time nonetheless. And you possess the target for a second and a half. So it's kind of strange when it happens. I don't know if I'll be able to do it on a target dummy or not, but let's just give it a try here. So you do that, and so you're like actually the target dummy, but then it lands you right in front of the target dummy. So it's kind of like a blink after you're done. I haven't really found a good way to use it yet, other than just using it as kind of like a gap closer, because it does have a 40-yard range. So if you are chasing somebody and you want to slow them, you're going to be able to possess their body for a second, pop out, and then just start doing damage on them, which you could land you're slow on that, so you could hit them with the Ghost Claw, which will slow their effects again. Shift is part of the mechanic for your stealthing ability. And now Shutter Scythe. So Shutter Scythe is one of your main abilities that you'll want to use on cooldown. It is an attack that delivers damage that heals you for 60% of your weapon damage. And then if you don't have a full bar of your soul fragments, it'll do 5 strikes. If you have a full bar like I have right now, you'll see it'll actually do 10 strikes. So you'll see it did 10, and it heals for a decent percentage. So it's not terrible, but it's something that you want to use on cooldown so that you can keep your health pretty well sustained. And now you have my favorite tree, which is the Reaping Tree. And so this Blood Siphon is another one of your abilities that you want to do to help you recuperate your health. What it does is it steals 125 to 146 health from all enemies in a 20-yard cone. And then it deals 100% increased damage and reduces all healing taken from affected enemies by 50% for 6 seconds. So it's a few things. One, it is a health regen. So when you use it, it'll steal the health from the enemy, and then it'll give it back to you. So if you're using it on multiple enemies, and if you're using it to pull a big mob, it'll actually put you back to full health pretty quickly if you have enough, because it does do, even though it says the tooltip says 125 to 146, I generally get healed for around 200 or so. Then it also tacks on Immortal Strike effect, which is really nice in PvP. So the other one is Crimson Pact. This is your buff. Put it on, and it increases your stamina by 10% for 30 minutes. Pretty self-explanatory. It's nice to have. Harvest time. So harvest time increases the effectiveness of your next 5 healing effects when used on your target for 30 seconds. So, and then while active, it also increases your parry chance. So if you remember earlier, I hit the Soul Shutter Scythe and I did about 28 or so damage. So let's see what that does right there. 28. Okay. So we're going to wait for that cooldown to pop back up. I feel like the cooldown on Shutter Scythe could be 15 seconds because the healing is not significant. I don't know, and maybe that's just me, but I feel like it doesn't do enough healing to where it justifies having a 20-second cooldown on it. So we're gonna hit harvest time, and so see now I just hit for 39 on my healing. So the increase is there. It's a pretty good increase for the ability. And if you want to see what Scythe Rush looks like, it's pretty cool. So it actually hits pretty decently, and it has a really cool effect on it. What's a cooldown? There you go. And then hit the Shutter Scythe again, boom, and tons of healing. Yeah. And then we go on to Reap. So Reap is one of your first abilities. It is your main damaging ability. It helps you generate your basically everything that you have to do with the